of all, thank you very much to WIOMSA for organizing this very important webinar on the state of seagrass in the Western Indian Ocean region. My name is Barka Musai. I'm the Regional Regenerative Blue Economy Manager at IUCN's regional office, where we focus on the Great Blue Whale Initiative, which we'll present in a moment. And we're super excited to welcome everyone to this webinar again. And the purpose of this webinar really is to bring together stakeholders and actors who are working on seagrass, interested in seagrass ecosystems, as well as eager to contribute to the knowledge base and discussions around seagrass in the Western Indian Ocean region. And this is part of a broader collaboration and a broader body of work that's being conducted through multiple actors, but notably right now with WIOMSA. And I'll invite Arthur to give us a couple of words before we kick off proper. And just wanted to run through how the agenda will flow for this webinar. We will essentially introduce IUCN's work around seagrass in the region, specifically the WIOCOR project, which is the Western Indian Ocean Coastal and Ocean Resilience Project on seagrass, as well as a little bit on what we're doing in our red list of ecosystems. And then we would really love to hear from our different partners. We have Pew that's present and that's joined us from a very different time zone to be with us, as well as experts, Dr. Jacqueline Uku, who is, I don't think she needs an introduction, Dr. Blandina, Dr. Salomao, so experts who are present. And then we really also want this webinar to be as interactive as technology allows. So we will figure out the tech around this to enable a group discussion on what really are some of the thoughts around seagrass, some of the priorities, some of the needs. And finally, we will close off with remarks from Dr. Jacqueline Uku. And this is how the agenda will run. So I will just invite Dr. Arthur Tudor in case he would like to add a few words to the opening.
Thank you, Barka. You said it well and speak all. So mine is just to recap for WIOMSA, all the partners who are here, both government and the multiple partners involved in seagrass projects in the wild. To welcome you to this webinar, which is great because it's, I think, the very first webinar on seagrass in the region ever held. So I guess that is a good progress and good start. And we have a huge number of participants, which is great. Now we are clocking almost 200 participants, showing us the interest that there is in this subject. And mine is just basically to welcome you as WIOMSA for co-hosting this with IUCN, Pew, and the other partners who are going to have a time to say something about their projects. Of course, we feel free at the end of these presentations, we should be able to have a discussion together. Of course, we may not have much time because it's a 2-hour event, but then this is just the beginning of good things to come. So welcome again, and thank you, Marka, for agreeing to lead this session. And back over to you. Karibuni.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And just a quick question. Are you able to see a full screen presentation or is it still within a window?
Say again?
I was just wondering if my presentation is full screen or if it's within a window.
It's full screen. It's full screen.
Oh, great. Right. So I will just kick off with presenting the WIOCOR project. Right. So essentially, the Western Indian Ocean Coastal and Ocean Resilience Program is a program under the Great Blue Whale, which aims to really create the living belt, but more specifically focusing on seagrass. And yeah, I'll just introduce the Great Blue Whale Initiative for those who might not be familiar with the term. Essentially, the Great Blue Wall seeks to connect seascapes across the region through a critical blue wall of, through a living blue wall of critical ecosystems. And these seascapes are not marine protected areas per se, but rather areas that have been identified as not just ecologically significant, but also where the coastal community is really present and really participating in conservation efforts as well as blue economy efforts. So the focus is a lot more holistic than traditional conservation and really seeks to create connected change. And it's being piloted in the Western Indian Ocean region. Here you can see the different spots where the seascapes are being activated. You can see the shape of a wall starting to come up. So we have seascapes in northern Kenya, the Kilifi seascape, the Tanzania, Tangapemba, Mozambique, Nyamban, in Madagascar and Seranana, in Comoros, Moheli, which was one seascape where we recently, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, launched our activities officially. We have also identified and started activities in the other spots that you see. And here, the impact is not just on conservation actions, but also really looking at what a regenerative blue economy can be unlocked, innovation, as well as models of governance that integrate both nature and people. And these actions, these interventions occur, first of all, at seascape level, but also at national level, at regional level, across borders. We're looking at it from a Pan-African perspective, as well as international from the perspective of positioning the African continent as a leader in ocean activities, as well as conservation and blue economy. So WIOCOR also isn't, the seascapes that have been identified for the initial focus are the ones that are being shared here. And WIOCOR operates in these seascapes. I'm happy to share this presentation so that you can have a closer look. But as you can see, these are areas that are quite significant. The only correction I would add here, the only update here is with regards to Comoros, where Comoros and Madagascar, where the focus would be not just on Moheli, but also on Anjouan and Grand Comore. But for now, you can see the wall which is being built, all conserved and regenerated in the Western Indian Ocean region. And the Great Blue Wall also, in addition to having a geographical focus, also anchors itself on 3 thematic pillars. One, which is the Blue Planet pillar, which is all about seascape governance, as well as establishing, amplifying, and enhancing marine protected areas and conservation measures, including through locally managed marine areas, which involve local community intervention. The Blue Nature pillar, and here I'd like to acknowledge my colleague Denise Nicolau, who's present in this webinar with us, and Tantel as well, who's also present. So this pillar is all about the critical ecosystems and habitats, and Denise will tell us a bit more about this. And the third pillar is the Blue People pillar, which is on catalyzing a regenerative blue economy, unlocking jobs, as well as innovative ventures, with a focus of ensuring that the Great Blue Wall is holistic in its approach and looking at also unlocking incomes and livelihoods. And finally, a transversal pillar is the Blue Partnerships pillar, which seeks to foster collaboration across the region, both from the angle of connecting seascapes, but also connecting us with different institutions that are working for the same goal, mission, and vision, as well as the private sector and what we would call unusual and unreal partnerships. So this is what the Great Blue Wall is anchored on. And since its launch in 2020 at the World Conservation Congress, followed by formal launch at COP26 in Glasgow, we're quite proud to say that we have started anchoring and concretizing the Great Blue Wall from just a big abstract idea to something that has local impact. And several projects are being implemented to help essentially bring this vision to life. The first one is the RESEA project, which takes a feminist approach to untapping the potential of the three pillars I mentioned before. The project that is the focus of our business today, which is WIOCOR, which is essentially all about regenerating seagrass ecosystems. LEAP, Island Plus, focusing on plastics, as well as providing policy support on areas such as a regenerative blue economy, as well as the High Seas Treaty. So now I will just invite Denise to perhaps give us a little bit more detail on the Blue Nature pillar. If she could, she is basically leading this pillar. She's also our in-house seagrass and ecosystems and mangroves expert. So I'll just yield the floor to her for a brief second. I'm not sure if Denise has speaker privileges.
Yes, I think now I can talk. Okay, thank you.
Okay, yes, I can hear you. I'll stop sharing for a second.
Yeah, thanks, Barca. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Denise Nicolau, the regional Blue Nature lead for IUCN. And as Barca mentioned, I'm leading the Blue Nature pillar in coordination with our country teams, but also other pillars lead. And actually the Seagrass intervention from IUCN side in the WIO region falls under the Blue Nature pillar. And just to mention that our main interventions under this pillar is just basically support conservation and restoration of priority habitats defined as mangroves, seagrasses, and coral reef. We are working on our regional strategy for this pillar, and we do have capacity and teams on the ground in the various countries where the Great Blue Wall initiative have been implemented in the WIO region. So in terms of our goal under this pillar is actually convene and promote a mechanism where the different stakeholders can support and contribute for the conservation of these priority habitats, aiming a net positive outcome and following the 30 by 30 agenda. IUCN effort have been mainly interventions through our members in the different countries across the region, through partnerships, focusing on capacity building and building capacity building across the different countries, focusing on nature-based solutions, trainings, but also opportunities for habitats conservation and restoration. Understanding the status of these habitats is also a priority for us. And this goes through mapping, application of the red list of ecosystems, but also promoting active mentioned, but most of the activities related to habitats, to the habitat conservation perspective, the stakeholders coordination, the trainings is actually part of my work with Tanteli, Lubna, Bilardo in Mozambique, Said, and the different colleagues across Kenya and Tanzania as well. So just want to thank you for the opportunity. This is a really good advance from our side, and I'm looking forward for the partnerships with the different stakeholders in this webinar. Thank you, Mark. I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Denise. Right, I'll just carry us very quickly through the WIOCOR project and then open the floor to Pew, followed by our different partners and experts for their perspectives on seagrass. So allow me to go through the tech motion of sharing my screen again. Okay, here we go. All right, right. So WIOCOR. In a nutshell, WIOCOR is a very simple project which aims to, although it focuses on the 5 seascapes that I mentioned, its reach is regional. And overall, I would say that it's a project that really focuses on capacity building and integrated governance. And this includes aspects of generating the knowledge products and data around seagrass, as well as ensuring connection across the different seascapes. And also, it puts the different actors in the region at the heart of the project. And by this, we mean essentially bringing up and developing the local capacities and some of the work that's already being done on seagrass conservation, monitoring and mapping, both from the scientific angle, governance angle, as well as supporting local communities through a call for proposals that I will mention in a bit. And this project is a 3-year project running until 2026, but we're hoping to get some feedback on how can we ensure that the effects of this project last beyond 2026. And this project is very generously supported by the French Fund for Global Environment, the FIFEM. And I would like to share a little bit what the pillars are. So WIOCOR is designed on 4 pillars. The first is on governance, which is really, it falls within the broader remit of the Great Blue Wall, looking at what are the national priorities, what are some of the, not just geographical, but also thematic priorities of the countries, as well as identifying how do we fit in the findings of WIOCOR within our green list and red list of ecosystem benchmarks. The second part, which is of concern to us for this webinar, is the knowledge component. And here, we really welcome our partnership with WIOMSA, who will be handling this component. And the knowledge product has been very deliberately designed to ensure that not only are we tapping into the already amazing body of work being done in the region on seagrass, but also amplifying it, as well as ensuring harmonization, supporting local scientists and local research and investigation. So our end goal is to prepare a regional seagrass status report, which our colleagues from WIOMSA will talk about in more depth. The third component, the action component, is in addition to the knowledge, we also really think that it's important to have actions and to support the seagrass anchored communities that rely on healthy seagrass ecosystems. So this really looks at developing regenerative blue economy activities and interventions focusing on local impact. Finally, the advocacy component. So seagrass, I would say, are the unsung heroes of the ocean world, in as much as they are amazing ecosystems with incredible potential, from bioremediation to coastal protection to acting as nurseries for, I think, a quarter of fishery species that we depend on. Yet they are the ecosystem that are the least protected globally compared with mangroves and corals. And also it's one of the ecosystems that has yet to find its way really into policy limelight to a large extent. So the advocacy component is really about getting people excited about seagrass. Although for this webinar, we're really preaching to the choir, but also supporting the development of a regional seagrass strategy. And here we acknowledge the efforts conducted by the Republic of Seychelles in paving the way on showing that seagrass conservation provides huge amounts of value and some of the mechanisms and policy tools to do it. And under the advocacy component, we will also be launching a Great Wall Fellowship to support further capacity building on seagrass. The objective is overall to promote how seagrass contributes to socio-ecological resilience in the WIO. And the outcomes that we're expecting from WIOCOR are to have strengthened, locally relevant governance. So really focusing on the local aspect of seagrass conservation and community impact and involvement. Second output is to enhance data science and knowledge on seagrass. The third is to help develop new ideas and impactful projects at local level by incubating these ideas and concepts. Finally, we want to enhance the consideration of seagrass in LMMAs and in marine protected areas, thereby helping to close the gap in the extent of seagrass as protected. And finally, the huge focus is really on building local capacity and enhancing efforts towards monitoring, governance, management, as well as more broadly project development. So I think this is my final slide. The action component that I mentioned. So we are looking to open a call for proposals and re-grant up to 1 million USD for very community level local impact actions and project ideas. So please, if you can share the word, I will share the information around this call for proposals that will be coming up soon. So I think that's it from the WIOCOR project. There is a chat box where and a question and answer feature where you can ask questions. And also, I would like to apologize that we tried to have translation, but we were not able to secure translation due to technical issues. So with that, that's the WIOCOR presentation. I will call upon my colleague Anna to run us through the red list of ecosystems, where it focuses on seagrass conservation. So Anna, the floor is yours. And I don't know whether you would like to share your screen or if I should continue sharing mine.
No, it's okay. You can share yours. It's fine. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks. We have around 5-ish minutes for the press.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. So I'm Ana Suarez. I'm working for the Red List of Ecosystems in IUCN headquarters in Switzerland. And today, thank you for the invitation for the webinar. And today we wanted to take you a bit fast of what is the Red List of Ecosystems and what are the plans for the seagrasses in the Western Indian Ocean assessment. Can you pass the slide? Yeah, so the Red List of Ecosystem is a global standard for assessing the risk of collapse of ecosystems. Before, there was no global standard for assessing the risk of whole ecosystem. Different countries use different methodologies that IUCN developed in the mid-2000s, the standard, which was published in 2013 and adopted in 2014 and followed with finally finished the guidelines in 2016. Sorry. Yeah, so it's now a global standard for measuring what is the ecosystem's risk of collapse widely and has been accepted also as a main indicator in the CBD. Next slide, please. So what kind of risk? So here we're measuring the probability of an adverse outcome over a specific time frame, and the outcome here will be the ecosystem collapse. This risk will help to set priorities. It doesn't set priorities, but informs about the priorities and where should countries or the globally should focus. Next, please. And when we mean collapse is for the ecosystem, it means when it transforms from identity. So if that is not anymore what was defined as the beginning of the ecosystem and is replaced by a new system. So it may have some elements in common of the previous one that are also valid with, but is not anymore considered as the initial one. Next, please. So the standard is composed of 5 criteria where we assess the ecosystem in the past, present, and future. There are 2 criteria that are evaluating the distribution of the ecosystem. So change in distribution, that is criteria A, the restricted distribution criteria B, and then we have 2 other criteria that are more about the qualitative part of the ecosystem, so the degradation, that will be criteria C, and the decline in biotic processes. And we have a 5th criteria that will unify all the 5, all the other 4 criteria through a model to evaluate an overall threat. At the end, we will have a threat category. So that can be from data deficient to collapse ecosystem. Next slide, please. So up to this 2019 publication by Blanc, there was more than 4,200 ecosystem assessed. And there are like 80 to 100 cases with full assessments. And as I mentioned before, it's already accepted as a headline indicator for the GBF and is being used for setting key biodiversity areas and for government regulation, protected areas. Next, please. If you want to learn more about the methodology, there are 2 courses. One really with the basics from the Deakin University, and there's also one from the IUCN Academy, where assessors can have a really detailed course on each of the criteria and how to use it for restoration. This is for free and you can access through the IUCN Academy. Next slide, please. Yes, so as I mentioned before, there's also a use of the Red List of Ecosystem for restoration, and there's another publication where you can have more guidelines on how to use it if you're needed. Next, please. For defining the ecosystems, we're based now in the global ecosystem typology. So it was accepted also by the UN statistics, and this is how countries should report their ecosystems numbers and the ecosystem that they will evaluate using this this structure that is consisting of 10 realms, 24 biomes, and 110 ecosystem functional groups. Please, next. And from this, so countries can have their national maps translated into a common terminology, common ecosystem names using the global ecosystem typology, so that we can all the countries and all the, for example, in the Western Ocean can also refer to the same ecosystems. Next, please. In the case of the seagrasses, so the seagrasses is from the biome from the real marine in the marine and shelf biome, and is one of the 110 ecosystem functional groups, seagrass and meadows. For the moment, the only map that was available for is the one from UNEP, but that's why we're really interested in the work that we will be doing on mapping the distribution of the seagrasses, so we can be able to evaluate them. And we have been in conversations with WIOMSA to do the Red List of Ecosystems in the Western Indian Ocean through the RISIA project. And then we will define in which, if we want to analyze of what is the best option to analyze it at a national level or at the regional level, or I don't know, marine regions. Next, please. In the case, for example, of the mangroves, that is the first global assessment, we divided the mangroves of the world in 36 units. That it was not related to countries' boundaries, but more with the marine ecoregions. And this was decided with a group of the mangrove specialist group. And then we gather experts from different parts of the world, and we assess all one of each of these units. Next, please. So this is what we obtain at the end with the evaluation using the global data. However, as you can see in the blue areas that are shown, the one that have already national or subnational assessments, as Denise mentioned before, for Mozambique is ready, and the results should be reported at this level if they are available. Next, please. For example, in this case, of there's a national assessment, and at the marine ecoregion level, the result was least concerned. But when you evaluate it at the national level and they divide it in 4, you can actually see there are more critical, the status is more critical. Next, please. It has been, the results have been shared through many different media and many different news. Around 250 experts from the world and 44 countries contributed to this, and this is why we're looking forward for the next that will be Seagrasses and your collaboration here. Thank you. Yes, it's okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna, and thank you for your work. And it's quite exciting that we have the example from the mangrove specialist group and mangrove efforts to also guide us in terms of best practices and building upon what's out there. So now that concludes IUCN's presentation segment. So the next part of the agenda is opening up to the different activities and efforts being conducted in the region. I'd just like to invite Stacey from the Pure Charitable Trust to walk us through the activities that they are running in the region. So Stacey, the floor is yours. And I think you would have the controls to share your screen as well.
Can you hear me?
Yes, all clear.
Oh, good. And am I in full screen?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. So thank you, everyone. Good morning from Washington, D.C. In the U.S. Good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Firstly, I would like to thank WIOMSA and the IUCN for the opportunity to present today. I'm Stacey Baez with the Pew Charitable Trust. We are a U.S. organization, and I work on the Advancing Coastal Wetlands project. And we support countries to help them include the protection and restoration of seagrasses, mangroves, and salt marshes into their NDCs, their nationally determined contributions. And so today I'm going to talk to you briefly about a WIO seagrass mapping project. It's a science to policy project with the aim to develop field verified seagrass maps that can help the development of seagrass forward NDCs in the region. And you'll see a list of logos below, and this is a highly collaborative project with many partners on the ground, and we'll go into the partners as I move through the talk, but really wanted to acknowledge that this is a collaborative effort, and so thank you to everyone who's been involved thus far. So I actually stole this slide from Dr. Tudor a few years ago, because I thought it tells a really a good story of where seagrasses are in the region. So this shows that seagrass science remains underrepresented, particularly when it comes to fisheries, mangrove forests, coral reefs, but there's hope. The number of publications, as you see from the graph on the right, is increasing from the region, and so we're on the right trajectory for seagrass, especially as this is the first seagrass focused webinar being held at WIOMSA. So I wanted to start off kind of giving a case study from Seychelles before I dive into the WIO mapping project. Starting in 2019, we supported the government of Seychelles with a seagrass mapping and carbon assessment project. And this work was led by the University of Oxford in partnership with the University of Seychelles, SECAT, which is the Seychelles Conservation and Climate Adaptation Trust, Island Conservation Society, and DLR, which is the German Aerospace Agency. So this collaborative project developed the first field verified map for the country. Prior to this work, there was a seagrass map. It was built on satellite imagery alone, said there was 2 million hectares of seagrass. But in actuality, there's more likely around 160,000 hectares. So from 2 million, it's really 160,000. And so it just shows the value of having local data and field verified data going into a model using satellite images. And because of this collaborative project and the support provided by SECAT to the government, the government committed to protecting all of their seagrass meadows and mangroves by 2030 in their NDC. So it was a hugely successful project. One of the more interesting outcomes of that work, because it was such a collaborative project with a lot of stakeholder engagement, one of the things that SECAT recognized was the need for unique Seychellois Creole words for seagrass. So seagrasses were called gomo, which means algae, but kind of anything green and slimy. And so through a huge national campaign, they interviewed fishermen, they did a huge stakeholder engagement survey, and they came up with 5 culturally appropriate names for different functional groups of seagrass. So the photo in the middle is a seagrass bed on Mahe. It's an inhalus bed, really long-leafed species of seagrass, very identifiable. And so the Creole name for that is Gomoze Grandfe. And those 5 Creole names have officially been entered in the country's Creole dictionary. So that's the image on the right, the dictionary, and you'll see I highlighted the Gomoze Grandfe. So it really is, this outcome really shows the importance of stakeholder engagement from a mapping project to a policy lens, and then to a legacy piece where, you know, if you love something, you give it a name. And so, the photo on the left is Dr. Jean Mortimer, who's based in Seychelles, and she's currently doing a distribution paper on the different species across the archipelago. So that expansion of the Seychelles work is now being moved to the WIO. We're calling it for now the WIO Seagrass Mapping Project. It will have an official project name, but right now we're in the process of formalizing contracts and site selection. So we're not quite there yet to have a name. And again, we want the name to be co-built with the partners. The outcome is a field verified seagrass map, much in the way we did for Seychelles, for Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique, and Madagascar. And Pew is supporting countries with the inclusion of seagrass into their NDCs. And this photo we took 2 years ago. We had kind of an ideas meeting to talk about seagrasses and to talk about kind of like, would the region be interested in a project like this? And so many thanks to all the partners who came to that meeting. So I will go just to the country leads. There are many other organizations involved in this project, but wanted to just highlight kind of the key people and organizations working to co-create this massive undertaking. So Oxford University, Dr. Gwilym is leading off the mapping and modeling. In Kenya, the project lead is Dr. Jackie Uku from KEMFRI, the Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute. In Tanzania, it's Dr. Blandina from University of Dar es Salaam, and State University of Zanzibar, Dr. Ali Usi. In Mozambique, Dr. Salomao, and in Madagascar, IHSM at Toliara University, Dr. Lanto Ranivo Arivello. So these are our country leads. We also have regional partners. We have a seagrass coordinator at WIOMSA. Welcome to Damboya. to the project. Many thanks to the Nairobi Convention and of course the IUCN. And then in addition to mapping, we would like these maps to flow into policy and make sure that governments have, access to all the data in their repositories. So still working with SACAT and partnering with some new partners for us, Fauna and Flora in Kenya, Wetlands International in Tanzania, and Lukulu Foundation in Mozambique. So what's next for us? We would like to kick off this year, finalize contracts in the region, and then ideally fieldwork begins in the autumn. Next year, we continue with fieldwork, policy engagement. We would like to do a workshop on NDCs. And then in 2026, ideally our maps are finalized. They have been sent to government. And then seagrass forward NVCs have been put forward for the region. And there is a real opportunity for the WIO region to take lead on seagrass. So yeah, more to come on that. And I'll just close here to give time to the rest of the speakers. Want to say thank you to all the project partners working really hard to build this project up from the ground. And there's my email in case you have any questions for me. Back to you, Barka.
Thank you so much, Stacey. That was a great presentation. So I'm just wondering whether the Indian Ocean Commission is in the room. So the WIOCOR project is also in complementarity to the RECOS project, but I'm not sure if they are in the. Oh, I see Adel, who's there. So I was wondering if I could invite you, Adel, to present a little bit on RECOS. So for about 5 minutes, and then we will give the floor to our experts as well as to WIOMSA. So Adel, please.
Thank you, Barka. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, that will be a quick presentation because I didn't prepare anything, but thank you for giving me some time. So I'm Adèle de Thomas, working on the RECOS project. The RECOS project is one of the projects implemented by the Indian Ocean Commission. So I will start to present a little bit what is the Indian Ocean Commission. So it is an intergovernmental organization working with 5 countries in the Western Indian Ocean. So working with Comoros, Madagascar, Mauritius, Seychelles, and France, Réunion Islands. Through the mission of the Indian Ocean Commission is to support its member states in the implementation of the conventions, the regional conventions. And the IOC is proposing different projects through 4 areas that are the, of course, environment and climate change, but also maritime issues, fisheries, and health and safety. So the RECOS project is one of the projects implemented by the IOC in its 5 country states. And the objective, this project is funded by the French Agency for Development and the FFEM. It started in beginning of 2022 and will finish in 2026. And the objective of this project is to strengthen the resilience of the coastal communities by preserving and restoring marine and coastal ecosystems. Through this project, the main activities are the implementation of a pilot project working on different thematics such as the conservation and restoration of marine and coastal ecosystem, coral reefs, mangroves, seagrasses, but also working on supporting LMMAs and MPAs, and coastal observation and erosion mitigation with a very ICZM approach. So that is a cross-cutting component of the RECOAST project that is based on the regional ICZM protocol from the Nairobi Convention. Well, yeah, just very briefly. So there are different field activities implemented with national and local partners in the 5 beneficiary countries, 4 beneficiary countries, because the Réunion Island can be a direct beneficiary because it's a French funding. But there was also a call for proposal that has been launched last year. And now we have 7 new projects selected from this call that are going to be implemented quite soon. And also a program of exchange of expertise between the different actors of the region, which is in fact a part of capacity building component through the field exchange between stakeholders. And to provide a technical, scientific support to all those field activities, the RECOAST project set up a scientific component with 4 thematic working groups. And one of these working group is working on mangroves and seagrass conservation and restoration in those 4 countries. And this group is including experts from the regional networks, meaning the WIO mangrove network, and for the mangrove expertise, and the WIO seagrass network, with different representatives from each country. That's very brief, but yeah, through this working group is actually providing technical and scientific advices to the actors in charge of the implementation of the different field projects, but is also working on the development of capitalization tools such as regional guidelines for mangrove restoration, and the same for seagrass restoration. And so that's this work is starting now. And there is also grants for a PhD and postdoctoral for a research program on those thematics in the region. Well, we are working in collaboration and partnership with different regional initiatives in the region. The main one is, of course, the WIOMSA, who is part of the regional scientific committee for us for the RECOAST project, and other initiatives in the region, and mainly to provide support to the regional networks to strengthen the participation of IOC representatives in those regional networks. Thank you, Barka.
Thank you very much, Adele. Right, so I know we took a little bit of time to provide some context of the different projects that are happening, but now I'd like to highlight that we have quite a few, I would call them rock stars, superstars of seagrass conservation and seagrass science. So a whole range of experts who are present in the room, and I do apologize if I miss anyone. We do have quite a huge list of participants, but I would like to invite Dr. Jacqueline Ukru, followed by Dr. Blandina, Professor Salomao, to give us a little bit of an overview of seagrass in their area of work, what they feel are some of the priorities going forward in the short, medium, long term that we really need to be focusing on, and what's also needed to make that happen. So if that's okay, I would really like to hear from Dr. Jacqueline. The floor is yours.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. The sound is a little bit...
Hello, everyone.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. I will try my best to communicate. Is it any better?
It's better now.
I've had a bit of a lapse with the internet, but I just hope you'll be patient with it. My name is Dr. Jacqueline Uku. I'm a former past president of WIOMSA, and it seems like a long time. And I thought I should tell a story rather than presenting slides, because when I started, my vision was to put seagrasses on the Kenyan map. I started at a time when mangroves and coral reefs were the in thing. And so I took the road that was not very much walked on and decided, well, I'll focus on the grasses, or maybe they chose me, and try to tell their story. Over the years, I've worked on different aspects. I began looking at pollution and responses of seagrasses in different areas. Moved on to looking at sea urchin herbivory, because that became a big thing in our region, in the areas that I was studying. And slowly, I went from a one-person show to having met several young people who are today in this call, joining the bandwagon. So there was a sense that we were the Seagrass team, and we wanted to really, really put a spotlight on the work and on this ecosystem by the work we do. Slowly, we've evolved to working on microinvertebrates. We've worked on environmental DNA aspects, as well as restoration in areas that are critically needing restoration, such as areas in Wasini in the south coast of Kenya. And more recently, with the partnership of the mangrove team, I think we found we couldn't keep away from them. There were lessons we could learn, especially concerning blue carbon. And so we adopted a mangrove model in the south coast of Kenya, in a place called Vanga and Jimbo, to see whether we could have seagrasses add on to carbon credits in the Vanga Blue Forest project, which was a mangrove project, but we were seeking to add on seagrass carbon onto this system. We've been successful. We had many, many community discussions over a period of 2 years, supported by the Wildlife Conservation Society. And we're extremely gratified at the end to be able to establish seagrass LMMAs, or co-management areas. That has been an interesting journey, and I've seen a question, I think, on the chat that the financing that is available is really big and belongs at the level of institutions and may not go down to communities. I'd just like to assure the audience that we have begun working on the development of institutional capacity within the community level. The Vanga Blue Forest is independent. They run their benefits independently. And we are creating a small institutional structure to be able to run seagrass benefits that stream into the community at the community level. The initiatives that have been presented here come really at the right time. And I would like to say, I think the age of the seagrass has finally arrived. Because for me, it's been a long time coming. We've had a lot of resources put into coral research, mangrove research, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't collaborate, because I think there are many lessons that we can learn from what has gone ahead of us in these two ecosystems. I see the opportunities for mapping offered by the Pew Foundation or being very critical and meeting the aspiration we've had to map our scope, spread, and change in Kenya, and I believe in the region. And I also see that work by IUCN, especially in capacity building, supporting to build a critical mass of capacity, critical mass of students, community members that have a deeper understanding of seagrass issues. I continue to do quite a bit of research, and I've used seagrasses to work with children on ocean literacy initiatives. And so I think we have been gratified as a seagrass community in Kenya. And as I close, I'd just like to say again, the age of the seagrasses is finally here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jacqueline. And I think it is really gratifying and inspiring to have scientists and researchers, as well as storytellers of your caliber, as well as that of the speakers that are going to follow, that come from our region. So I think this is a good motto to say that the age of the seagrass has arrived. I would like to invite Dr. Blandina, if you could share some of your thoughts, some of the priorities around seagrass, some of your observations as well.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I've switched off my video because my network's not good. So please bear with me. Otherwise, I'm so happy to be part of this, I would say, first ever webinar, whereby seagrass experts within the region could sit together and talk about seagrasses. And I'm happy to speak just after Jacqueline, as we have known each other as seagrass experts for quite some time. And the story that she has just explained tells well with also my experience. For myself, I started working with the seagrasses in the 1990s. And I was doing my master's. I had just started doing my master's. And then my supervisor, the late Professor Adelaida Semesi, introduced me to seagrasses. And by then, I wasn't so much aware of what is all about seagrasses. So I started digging the information when I prepared my proposal. And then later I worked on seagrasses, and just it happened that I fell in love with them. And here I am still working on seagrasses. But also I wanted to say that it's very encouraging now to see seagrasses are given the attention that they deserve, because maybe 10 years back, not even so long, it was a bit difficult to see people sitting together and talk about seagrasses. So I'm real happy. And I want to report some work that I have done on seagrasses. And this work has been mostly funded by WIOMSA through a MASMA project. And I would like to report some key achievements that we have done through that particular project. The first achievement is, for the first time, as a country, we have our seagrass map, which might need to be updated through the Pew project, but at least we have a seagrass map, and which was done through satellite imagery coupled with ground truthing. And we have reported over 2,000 square kilometers of seagrasses within the country. And also through the same project, we have done some trials on seagrass restoration along the entire coast of Tanzania. For the Tanzania, and which proved to be real successful. And this information can be found in one of our articles that we have published. In March this year, we had an opportunity through the funding of WIOMSA to call a workshop, I would say the first ever workshop, that brought up together many experts from Tanzania, where we could sit together and synthesize information regarding the status of seagrass knowledge in Tanzania. And through that workshop, we were able to see that the research in Tanzania on seagrass didn't start quite long. The first publications came out in 1988. So you could see that's among the people came late in doing research on seagrasses, and I'm really happy that now is being given that particular attention. In that particular meeting also, we were able to form a group, a working group for Tanzania, which we call Seagrasses TZ, whereby it brought together many experts from the country, from different institutions, and we are still recruiting more so that all seagrass experts within the country can sit together and discuss the status of seagrasses within the country and also identify gaps so that we can shape the type of research that is required within the country. And currently, we are finalizing the preparation of a guideline to support seagrass restoration in Tanzania to be launched soon. We thought we could manage to finalize it and maybe launch it today, but we are still doing some final touches. And we discussed it with Arthur from WIOMSA, and we are hopeful that we are going to launch it during our in-person meeting, which will be in the next few months. And as Stacy explained, with the support of P, we are also part of the WIO Seagrass mapping project, and we are in the final stages of our contract. So to finalize, on behalf of the seagrass experts from Tanzania, also known as Tanzania Seagrasses, I would like to say that we are happy to be part of these initiatives that are going on within the region, and we would like to be part of them, and we confirm our eagerness to continue participating in these initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Blandina. And indeed, it was an oversight on my part not to highlight that, in fact, Tanzania has gone very far on its seagrass efforts as well. So conscious of time, I will just now invite Professor Salomao to talk to us about seagrass in Mozambique.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, or good evening. Okay. Where can I start after Blandina and Jacqueline Uku? Yeah, maybe when they were speaking, I think my very first interaction with the seagrass when I was doing my undergrad, we had to apply terrestrial grass methods in order to understand the seagrass. That was very interesting, quite some decades ago, out of Inyaka Island. Actually, I was asked just to, that's what I'm going to bring here, Mozambique contribution to the ocean decade Africa. Also, I can bring some of the priorities that I see as in demand in order to move forward with this time which has arrived, the time for seagrasses, okay? First of all, I would say that since then, there is a fairly better understanding about the seagrasses, especially the link between seagrass and macroinvertebrates. Actually, it's part of my current work now, whereby this the very first component is that we came up not just understand distribution of the seagrasses, especially in parts of southern Mozambique, Maputo Bay and Inhambane Bay, but also pinpoint the diversity of macroinvertebrates, especially edible. That was very interesting. Okay, I can give the examples of some of the clams. Okay, actually, I've been preparing 10 points just to match with that decade component. You know, so one thing interesting related to this is that those macroinvertebrates, most of it is being collected by women. Okay. Even though they are poor, but it gives them some degree of power. So I think the seagrass, if I were to apply, you know, the language with different genders, I would say it tends to be more feminine. You know, just if I were to use Portuguese, for example, I think the other contribution that I see is it just happened yesterday. The Mozambican government has approved a new larger area of conservation that extends Carimba National Park up to Palma in Cabo Delgado. This is very interesting. So, which means that the Carimba National Park, which has been there for a few years, so to say, less than 20 years, it has been increased 4 or 5 times. Okay, that's very interesting. So I think it may help contributing, for example, it will contribute to the the footprint of Mozambique in terms of increasing its area for conservation. Number 5, I think I see here seagrass and dugongs. There's a lot ongoing in terms of trying to conserve the dugongs, the largest population, more than 400 individuals out of Bazaruto. Within that park, I see that quite a great contribution that we do to the dugongs directly, but indirectly the seagrass as well. I want to move into the Seagrass initiative. We have started the Seagrass Restoration Initiative. We started in 2018, just with training. And then we had the opportunity to have a UNEP Regional Seas Nairobi Convention, also WIOMSA supporting. So we had a demonstration initiative and a lot of students were there engaged. So I think out of Maputo Bay is around 4 hectares, in Yaman 1 hectare, which have been restored. But there are other initiatives ongoing, especially in northern Mozambique, Nampula, and several seagrass I would like to highlight here. For example, we are focused very much also on Zoster capensis. I think you from IUCN have mentioned the IUCN red list. Zoster capensis is also a flagship species. That we have others as well, but this is the one we are also focusing the restoration apart from other 3 species. I should also mention that for me, it was very interesting while doing the restoration initiative, bringing in other actors, other disciplines like social science. I think my colleague, Professor Marlino, he might be on the audience. Okay, he was very instrumental for us to understand communities and other actors, and we move forward in creating this CBO that deals with seagrass restoration and conservation out of Iñaka. I will stop with 2 other things. I think very important is that we are embarking on NDCs, but the NDC chart of Mozambique does highlight resilience and the need to incorporate other habitats other than terrestrial components and mangroves, which is very interesting. On the priorities, I'll just pinpoint 3. Okay, first of all, I think engaging seagrass on OSCN, it's very important, and there have been some few strides, especially LMAs, as it's been pointed out. I think that's the way to embark, and this will bring more protection and more livelihoods. This links with the livelihood. I think the link with livelihood is very important, as we talk a lot about seagrass restoration, but in some places, where you have people digging, using instruments, etc. Maybe we need to go into agreement with the communities in order to solve the issue of livelihoods. Okay. Of course, by doing that, we will all support the region also, and Mozambique in particular, to attain those GBF 30. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Salamao. And it's very important that you highlighted the gendered aspect of seagrass conservation, management, and regeneration. And we take good note of the importance of focusing on empowering and investing in seagrass OECMs, and mention of CBOs, which are community-based organizations, also known as BMUs in other parts of the continent, or LMMAs. And I wanted to point out that there will be a Western Indian Ocean LMMA forum in Madagascar in September, and my colleague Dantel, who's online, is available in case you want to message him to find out more information on that. I'm aware that I think the chat box is not active for participants. I apologize. We have requested our tech team to address this, and hopefully that can lead to a more fluid conversation. So with those presentations, now I would like to invite our colleagues from WIOMSA to talk us a little bit more about the science component and on the knowledge component of how we're going to develop the status report, what is some of the activities, and how this is all going to come together for us. Yeah, so the floor is yours.
Right, I'm checking if you can see my screen. Can you see it? Barker, confirm.
Okay, we can see it. It's not yet on full screen, but we can hear you.
Okay, let me just check. It's not full screen. Let me just check. Sorry. All right. Moment. Right, as I look for my screen, I think mine is basically a summary of what other presenters have said. So it's just to summarize it all. So we've heard from Barca, we've heard from Pew, and we've heard from the country reps. So the role of WIOMSA really is to try and tie all this together into what you'd call the knowledge component of this project. So basically, looking at how we can benefit in terms of shared knowledge from this project. So, sorry, why my screen is sharing. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to quickly present here. Let me see if now possible to share. Is it now okay, Berka? Tell me. All right, thank you. So as other
Sorry, still not in the, apologies, it's still not in full view, but we can still see.
Full view now, I guess.
Okay, perfect.
All right, so from Barca's presentation, we heard about WIOCOR has got component 2, which is a knowledge component. So WIOMSA will be implementing that component of WIOCOR. WIOMSA will also be leading the Seagrass mapping as described by Stacy. So really, the whole purpose is to see how this can operate in a better integrated way to be able to generate knowledge products out of these projects. And as shown in previous slides, I think the focus countries at the moment are Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique, Madagascar, and Comoros. However, that does not mean that other countries are excluded. It only means that for purposes of the project, there are focal countries, but all these other countries will be involved in all the activities that will be undertaken at different times. And really, the knowledge component aims to support or generate knowledge to support conservation efforts, which of course, broadly defined, includes management and conservation measures for seagrass and related ecosystems. So basically, seagrass being the focus system we're looking at, but the whole idea is to how do we support generally conservation efforts through comprehensive knowledge building activities. And the very first activity that we'll undertake under this component is to support the development or the writing of a regional seagrass status report. And from our side, we will be able to organize regional workshops, both in-country and regional level workshops, to collect this information. We know that a lot of information already exists, but it's all scattered in different places and institutions. So we want to bring all these stakeholders at different levels together, led by the national country leads who are presented here today, to be able to come up with the very first WIO seagrass status report. So I guess this is an activity that will begin in August, which is starting tomorrow, basically. So it's going to run for the duration of the WIOCOR project, but we aim to complete this by the first year of the project or even before that. And this will guide us in terms of setting priorities for research going forward, for management, and for other policy actions in the WIO region. So it's setting up a baseline, if you like, a starting point for bigger WIO seagrass projects that will follow thereon. And important component of this is also strengthening the scientific part of the project, which is basically a very strong focus on research. The presenters have talked about the slow start for seagrass research in the WIO region, but of course it's gaining momentum as we go on. And WIOMSA has been supporting through MASMA and MARC different projects that are aimed at improving knowledge on seagrass. And the WIOCOR project is going to come in to provide more funding to increase activities for seagrass research. So basically, this is going to cover a wide range of areas. And complementary, of course, is the PEW project, which is going to focus and produce data on the regional sea maps, seagrass maps. But we're also going to have a broad range of research conducted at country level, but working together as a region. So that's the design of the MASMA program. For those who have been in MASMA before, countries will be able to identify what their priorities are in terms of knowledge, but we're also going to ensure that all these country projects come together under a broader regional project led by the country leads. And this is going to look at all aspects of seagrass science, whether it's social, ecological, all the sciences that are relevant to seagrass. And this knowledge, of course, is supposed to help countries come up with management plans, just like Salamawa has talked about the increased area for the MPAs in Mozambique. That is an example of where this kind of information would be useful in developing management plans for seagrass. For countries who are making commitments on climate action, the mapping data and all this work will improve their, their participation or the information about the nationally determined contributions. And these are just examples of where this kind of information might be useful. But a more important point is where local communities and managers will come in is to institute long-term monitoring programs in MPAs and in LMMAs. So somebody asked about the role of communities and local governance stakeholders. So this component is also going to ensure that long-term monitoring programs are established at those sites, which are managed by communities, by governments, whether they're MPAs or LMMAs. So the research component is going to be broad, integrated, involving different players at different levels in co-design and co-production of knowledge. And this is going to come through a call for research proposals that we hope to release, hopefully, in the next few weeks. Also important in terms of research is building capacity for for seagrass research. So we started by issuing out grants for early career scientists. This is going to continue under the WIOCOR project. So we aim to issue out more calls for early career scientists to apply for grants. Those who are involved in research, either for their master's or PhD programs, should be able to benefit from this call for proposal. So that's part of capacity building, but also improving research on seagrass. An important component will be also on public education and outreach. So all this knowledge will be packaged in different forms and disseminated to different audiences through WIOMSA media, but also other existing media that are managed by different partners. And an important event, of course, next year is the WIOMSA Symposium, the 13th WIOMSA Symposium, where we also aim to have a special session on seagrass to be able to present some of the immediate products that may have come out of the 1 year of project implementation. So we look forward to seeing you all at the special event of the WIOMSA Symposium 2025. I guess that's it from Barca. Sorry, that's it from me, Barca. Yeah, so basically it's just summarizing everything that has been said, but now thinking of it in terms of knowledge. What knowledge products are going to come out of this work, and how is that going to be translated into policy and action? That is the role that WIOMSA is going to play, and of course, bringing all stakeholders together to share this knowledge and interact in different forums. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much, Arthur. So this is the exercise that we are planning to do. I know today we did not dive into the details of the seagrass ecosystems in the Western Indian Ocean region, but rather the processes that we are going to use to bring all of this together and work with the different partners on the ground, as well as the experts and the different types of support that we want to bring in, we want to leverage to make this happen. And again, to highlight, we really think that this is an important exercise, considering that as I mentioned, seagrass, as Dr. Salama mentioned earlier, that they had to use terrestrial grass methodology to address seagrass, and some of the protocols around harmonizing monitoring, harmonizing research around seagrass are still being built. So we really feel that the region can be a powerful example of seagrass conservation, restoration, and regeneration, as well as bringing seagrass communities, seagrass anchored communities to the front. So for us, it's super important for us to hear from what are the different priorities that perhaps were not addressed during the conversation so far. Unfortunately, we were not able to resolve the chat issue, but I would encourage the participants to use the Q&A function to add some of the questions that they may have, as well as some of the things and areas that needs to be focused on. Okay, so we're starting to get some of the questions already. One of them, we have a lot. Right, let me start from the bottom up. The latest one is from Nicole Duplessis. Noting that sometimes when projects end, the data that has been collected can become unavailable. And here the recommendation is that any data management plans should be put in place to ensure that data is accessible and available to communities. I'm just going to open the floor to our panelists if they can respond to this comment and the platforms that exist or that need to be set up to ensure that this very important concern is addressed. First of all, Arthur, maybe you could go first.
Yeah, thanks, Barca. I'll just respond to that question. I think one of the goals of this project is to make this knowledge available for users, different users, governments, communities, and any other coastal managers, practitioners. So yes, WIOMSA will work with the partners to ensure that data is easily available and accessible from the projects. One of the things we're going to do, obviously, is set up some kind of data sharing platforms, which is going to be agreed upon by the different projects. But that's a key component of this work, that data should be made accessible eventually, because that's one of the policies for most of the grants that are WIOMSA issues out, that data should be accessible. But of course, we'll work on the modalities to ensure that that is accessed in the right way. So yes, it's part and parcel of the project knowledge component. Thank you.
Great. We have one more question from Yvonne on whether there is a component on the valuation of ecosystem services. Perhaps Pew can take that one.
Thanks, Baka. So our project looks at seagrasses starting from filling gaps. So we're first focusing on looking at seagrass coverage and extent and potentially distribution. The next phase after that is completed is to look at threats and valuation, but that's a long ways away. So we are at the inception phase of just the basic question: where are the seagrasses in the WIO?
Yeah, but just to add on that, the bigger research component might include that. So basically, the research questions are not yet defined at the moment, but if that emerges as one of the key gaps that countries really prioritize, then yes, it can be included as part of the bigger research projects. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And perhaps also down the line, we would also love in the future iterations of this conversation to bring in the experiences from the Seychelles, specifically from SECAD as well. And right now our focus is very much on creating the baseline and the data and the knowledge products, and create a solid regional report that will help us, as Stacey mentioned, to look at how can we look at valuation of ecosystem services, as well as strengthen conservation modalities itself. Right, so I am scrolling upwards as well. Projects aligned to various SDGs and BBNJ. I'm glad someone mentioned BBNJ and Madagascar. And one of the questions was also on microgrants under the action component of WIOCOR. And thank you, Silvana Anta, who asked the question as to how do we ensure that these funds are not going to the same big NGOs, and the criteria for grantees. So again, if anyone that have any suggestions on how to ensure that the call for proposals is as inclusive as possible, as well as the impact and sharing of information on the various components of WIOCOR is as inclusive as possible, I would love to hear that, because sometimes we have blind spots and we don't realize that we have perhaps missed a community, or establish a criteria that creates a barrier for the community to access it. So thank you for raising that, Silvana. Okay. Right. And okay, one more question, perhaps Dr. Jacqueline might be able to answer. Is there a specific group or link to join for the restoration program in the Kilifi to Pemba seascape area? I'm also going to share my contact details so that if anyone has any questions that's not answered, they can reach out directly. So yeah, I don't know whether you'd like to take that, Dr. Uku or Dr. Blandina.
I'll speak for Kilifi. Can you hear me, Baka? Good. I'm not aware of specific restoration programs for seagrasses in Kilifi. The one we did was in Wasini, was adjacent to Wasini Island. And, we really evaluate costs of restoration. They're exceptionally high. And so we're still experimenting with cheaper methods of restoration. And so it's not something you go in very fast with. You do several assessments to get it done. And Pemba, maybe Blandina would be aware.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, sorry. And maybe Dr. Blandina, you could also take the opportunity to respond to one of the questions from Suleimani Masood on whether the seagrass restoration effort in Tanzania is based on a single species alone, or if in your experience there were multiple species that were considered and utilized.
Okay, thank you so much. our trial was based on one species, Syringodium isoetifolium. However, after 2 years now since we did the restoration, we found that other species are now also growing in the same plots. So I think it's a bit challenging to start with these multiple species. However, once the habitat has stabilized, then there's opportunity that other species can also grow in the restored areas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, there's a whole lot of questions, including some very interesting ones on the high seas. Unfortunately, okay, would it be possible to consider forum to, so because we are running out of time, I would suggest we take a last 2 questions, and then I would invite Dr. Uku to take the floor for her closing remarks. However, all of these questions are super important, so we'll try to look at them after the webinar and perhaps just respond to them via email. So one of the questions is actually also a suggestion, which I think is quite great, which is that would it be possible to consider a forum to introduce potential stakeholders for collaboration? I work at a research university, JKUAT, based in Juja, but would love to meet some community organizations on the ground. And then the question right above this on John Mugani, is there any component specifically for seagrass awareness to local people in Tanzania? Yes, there is a component, an advocacy component for seagrass under WIOCOR, as well as our sister projects RISI. We have teams on the ground in Tangapemba who can provide more details if you can just leave your contact details. So to answer Josephine's question, I don't know whether you'd like to take that, Arthur and fellow panelists.
Was the question you want me to take, or I didn't get?
Is the proposition from Josephine Muchogu, who asks whether it's possible to consider a forum to introduce potential stakeholders for possible collaboration. She is keen to meet some community organizations on the ground.
Yeah, I think at the local level, I think we'll work with the lead country lead, and country leaders will be able to design programs that then are relevant and suited to the local context. And so we hope that through these processes, different stakeholders and communities will be able to participate at the country level.
Okay, great. And I would also, okay, hi. Okay, great, thanks. Oh, I love that there's so many questions coming, but we might need like a full day workshop just on seagrass. Indeed, the time for seagrass has clearly come. So we have run out of time for the Q&A. So I will request Dr. Jacqueline Uku to come and grace us with the closing remarks. So Dr. Jacqueline Uku wears many hats. As I mentioned, superstar of the seagrass, but also chair of the Africa Ocean Decade Task Force, as well as many other roles. So with that, I would invite you for the closing.
Thank you, Banka. I still hope I can be heard. This has been a very fulfilling session. As I said earlier, it's very gratifying to know that we finally arrived. The partnership we've had with Dr. Blandina, Dr. Salamau, myself, anchored on founding members like Professor Adelaida Simesi and others. And I see also Paul Eftemeyer in this group, who has also championed us and encouraged us. in Kenya. We wouldn't have come this far without the national and regional partnership. And so we're extremely grateful for the new partnerships and collaborations that we'll forge as we move forward. As we move forward, I'd just like to contextualize this in the and focus it onto the decade, the UN Decade for Ocean Science, because this really feeds into the work that we have done. Barca is one of the members of our African task force for the decade. I chair the decade committee, and we were established in October 2022. We have 14 individual members and 6 institutional members that have come together across Africa. So it's really interesting to see that we've moved from national platforms, regional platforms, and we are now speaking together as Africans. And to put this work that we are doing in context, we have an African Decade Roadmap that was launched in May 2022 that documents what we would like to see in this UN Ocean Decade for Africa. And I think the link will be shared, and if you type on Google, United Nations Ocean Decade for Africa, you'll get the documentation. And we have 9 thematic areas or 9 priority areas. And the third priority area is unlocking the blue carbon potential for Africa. And this work that we've discussed today fits right in there. For a long time, we focused on blue carbon ecosystems, being mangroves, but we're very keen to add the second layer, which is the seagrass potential, the seagrass contribution, not only to fisheries, because even now, that is usually the lens that we look at seagrasses with, but really as a vital ecosystem for blue carbon harvesting and contribution into national policies. We aspire through this work, especially the work of Pew, to push seagrasses into the nationally determined contributions for all the states that will be part of this process. And this is the goal, this is our vision for the seagrass work that we will be doing and contributing to.
I think we may have lost Dr. Uko.
I think we lost her. Baraka, maybe I think we lost her because.
Yes, I think we lost Dr. Uko. Okay. So perhaps right, internet is a challenge indeed, but I think it was really interesting for us to also hear about the Africa Decade Roadmap. Arthur, would you like to close out the webinar in that case? I do apologize for some of the technical issues, but sometimes internet is not on our side.
Thanks, Baraka. I think we are close to time, and we will let Jackie know that we took over. Apologize for that mishap. So I just want to thank everyone who found time to be part of this webinar. We've kept a large number of participants until now. That clearly shows the interest in seagrass in the WIO region. I think this is a good start for all of us. from all the partners and participants, on behalf of WIOMSA and the partners, I want to say thank you very much. We will be obviously keeping in touch with all of you. We have your contacts. For those who registered, we have your email addresses. So rest assured that we will be providing all the information required about these projects as we move on. And if you have any suggestions, as Barka pointed out, please feel free to contact any one of us here, Barka, Stacy, Damboya. We'll be sharing our contacts with any questions, suggestions. We really want this to be a WIO family project and not just a WIOMSA IUCN PU project. It's for everybody. And that's in the spirit of the decade, that we leave no one behind. I know Jackie would have said that, and so that we generate the science that we want for the ocean that we need. So I guess this is part of the progress. These projects are going to contribute immensely to the decade program for Africa. And I think as a region, we are taking lead in most of the decade actions. There are two important endorsed programs for the decade. One by the Decade Task Force, it's called SEAWARD, and one that is led by WIOMSA, it's called MARCO. All these aim at bringing the science into good management of our ocean. So we really want to appreciate you all and make you part of these bigger processes and initiatives. Other than that, I want to say thank you very much to our supporters, IUCN, Future Reachable Trust, RECOS, and everybody else who contributed to the success of this webinar, University of Orlando, Kemfree, University of Dar es Salaam, and everybody else. I want to say thank you very much. We appreciate you all and have a good evening. We shall be seeing you again very soon for another big event. Thank you very much, Barka.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And with that, we shall end the webinar now and start the conversation on the WIO seagrass. So thank you to everyone. And our contact details are in the flyer that was circulated, but also as Arthur mentioned, we'll be reaching out to you. So you shall have our contact details for further questions. Thank you. And good evening, good night, and good day to all of you, depending on where you are. Bye.